The Calm Life of Mr. Phileas Fogg.
In the year 1872, in the busy heart of London, lived a gentleman who was unlike any other.
His name was Phileas Fogg, and though many people had heard of him, very few truly knew him.
He was a man of habits, of order, and of perfect punctuality. His home was in Savile Row, a quiet street known for tailors and fine houses.
The neighbors sometimes wondered about this man who seemed to live without change, without family, and without visible work.
Mr. Fogg's life was measured by the tick of the clock. He left his house at the same minute each morning. Returned at the same exact time each evening, and never allowed the smallest delay to interrupt his order. His meals, his reading, even his walks were organized with mathematical precision.
Some people thought he was cold and proud. Others whispered that he might be rich, but strange.
But the truth was simpler. Phileas Fogg valued calm, order, and discipline above all things.
Every day, at the same hour, he went to the Reform Club.
A private gentlemen's club where London's wealthiest and most respected men met.
To read newspapers, discuss important topics.
The Reform Club on Pall Mall was a place of polished oak tables, red leather chairs, high ceilings, and the constant rustle of newspapers. The men who gathered there were politicians, bankers, engineers, and men of science. It was a temple of reason and respectability, where arguments were sharp but voices remained calm. There, Mr. Fogg spent hours reading and playing whist, a card game that required concentration and strategy. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were clear and precise. A new servant. On the morning of October 2nd, 1872, something unusual disturbed Mr. Fogg's carefully ordered life. His servant had left him suddenly, unable to endure his master's strict schedule and demands. Mr. Fogg, calm as always, simply placed an advertisement for a new valet. That same day, a Frenchman named Jean Passepartout arrived at Savile Row to apply for the position. Passepartout was about 30 years old, with a friendly face, lively eyes, and the heart of a traveler. He had tried many professions: singer, acrobat, firefighter, and even circus performer. When Mr. Fogg interviewed him, the conversation was short and direct.
Your name? Jean, but everyone calls me Passepartout. You wish to serve as my valet?
Yes, sir. I am strong, punctual, and loyal.
I left Paris because I desired peace and regularity.
Peace and regularity you shall have, said Mr. Fogg, without changing his expression.
My house is in order, and my habits never change.
If you serve me well, You will find this place most suitable.
But Passepartout, once again in London, seemed to regain all his accustomed composure. After so many adventures, a life of calm sounded perfect.
He did not yet know how mistaken he was.
As soon as he entered his master's house, Passepartout noticed its unusual character.
The furniture was plain but elegant, polished until it shone. There were no pictures, no decorations, no family portraits. The only thing that seemed alive was the large clock in every room, all ticking in harmony. This is the home of a man who loves order more than life itself, Passepartout whispered to himself. He did not know that within 2 days he would be traveling across Europe, leaving London far behind.
That particular afternoon in October 1872.
A conversation arose in the Reform Club.
That would change the life of Phileas Fogg forever.
The news had spread through London. The Bank of England had been robbed of £55,000.
The thief had escaped, leaving the city in shock.
The newspapers speculated about his identity, though no one yet knew who he was.
Some members of the club spoke of the robbery while reading the Danes paper. Others discussed the speed of modern travel.
New railways were being built in India, the Suez Canal had opened, and steamships were crossing oceans faster than ever before.
Phileas Fogg sat quietly, as always, playing whist with his companions. He seemed unaffected by the excitement around him. His calmness made him mysterious.
And some of the gentlemen often wondered if anything could truly surprise him.
One of the players, Mr. Ralph, set down his cards and declared, "The world is growing smaller every day."
Why, gentlemen? One might soon travel around it in a matter of months.
"Months?" replied Andrew Stewart, another member, laughing. "You are too generous, Ralph. With all these steamships and railways, one might do it in 8 days or even less." The group chuckled, but Stewart's words caught the attention of Mr. Fogg.
He raised his calm eyes from the cards and spoke in his measured voice.
80 days. It can be done.
A murmur ran around the table at these words, and the players paused, staring at the imperturbable gentleman.
Done? Nonsense! You cannot travel around the world in 80 days. It is impossible. On the contrary, it is entirely possible. I am prepared to prove it. The men leaned closer. You speak seriously, Fogg? I never speak otherwise. Then explain yourself.
Without hesitation, Mr. Fogg produced a small notebook from his pocket. Inside was a neat timetable, drawn up with precision. He spoke as though reciting a mathematical formula, listing each stage of the journey with exact times.
Exactly 80 days.
Then, with calm certainty, he concluded, "Total.
London to Suez, 7 days.
Suez to Bombay, Town,
13 days. Bombay to Calcutta, how? 3 days. Hong Kong to Yokohama, maybe 6 days. Yokohama to San Francisco and Taiwan, 22 days. San Francisco to New York per Cromer, 7 days. New York to London Cutler, 9 days. Total, 80 days. The men stared in astonishment.
You forget storms, delays, accidents. You count only the minutes of the timetable, not the accidents of life.
Accidents? I never plan for accidents. A true gentleman does not waste time on imaginary delays. The routes exist. The ships sail. The trains run. The journey is possible.
Impossible!
Even if you succeed in reaching India, the rest of the world will defeat you. Shall we make it interesting?
What do you mean?
I propose a challenge. I shall go around the world in 80 days or less. If I fail, I will pay you £20,000. If I succeed, you will pay me the same. A silence followed.
£20,000.
It was an enormous sum, enough to buy an estate or fund an entire railway project. For Fogg to risk so much showed either great confidence or great madness.
You are jesting.
Not in the least. Shall we say the challenge is accepted? One by one, the men agreed. They were curious to see if this eccentric gentleman would truly attempt such a ridiculous venture. A contract was drawn up and signed.
You will leave when?
Immediately. Today, October 2nd, at 8:45 in the evening, I shall take the train to Dover, and from there to Calais.
I shall return here to the Reform Club on Saturday, December 21st, at the same hour. Gentlemen, mark your calendars.
When Mr. Fogg returned to his house on Savile Row, Passepartout was arranging his master's wardrobe. The Frenchman had imagined a calm life with quiet walks and peaceful evenings. He had no idea what was about to happen. Passepartout, we are leaving in 10 minutes. Pack a carpet bag with 2 shirts and 3 pairs of stockings.
Bring my woolen coat and the travelling rug. Do not forget the banknotes. We leave for Dover. Leaving? Tonight? Yes. We are going around the world in 80 days. Around the world? In 80 days?
Precisely.
The Frenchman had dreamed of quiet. Instead, he was being thrown into the greatest adventure of his life. But he had no choice. He obeyed, though his hands trembled as he packed. At exactly 8:45 that evening, Mr. Fogg and Passepartout left Savile Row and entered a cab.
The horses' hooves clattered against the stones as they hurried through the foggy streets of London.
Gas lamps glowered faintly, and the bells of Big Ben struck the hour as if to mark the beginning of their strange voyage. At Charing Cross Station, the train was waiting. Passengers hurried to their compartments, porters shouted, and whistles blew. Calm as ever, Fogg checked his watch, purchased 2 tickets, and boarded.
Mon Dieu! Here I thought I had found peace, and now I am off to the ends of the earth.
The train whistled and moved forward. The journey had begun.
At that same moment, another man was watching. His name was Detective Fix, an agent of Scotland Yard.
He had been following rumours about the Bank of England robbery. The description of the suspect, a tall, well-dressed
Englishman with calm manners, seemed to match Phileas Fogg.
When Fix saw Fogg and his servant board the train to Dover with such haste, his suspicions deepened.
Why else would a gentleman leave London so suddenly with a bag of banknotes?
Fix decided to follow them. He would keep a close eye on this mysterious traveler until he had proof. Thus, as the train sped into the night, 3 men were bound together by fate.
Fogg, calm and determined, who trusted in timetables more than chance.
Passepartout, confused but loyal, who longed for peace but found adventure.
Fix, watchful and suspicious, who believed he was chasing a thief.
The stage was set for an extraordinary race against time.
The train from Paris rattled southward through the French countryside.
Fields of golden wheat and rows of vineyards rolled past the windows.
Villages with red-tiled roofs and small church towers flashed by as the train sped on. Inside the carriage, Phileas Fogg sat with his usual calm, his eyes occasionally glancing at the timetable in his hand. Passepartout, on the other hand, pressed his face to the glass like an eager child. He had never traveled so far from London, and every detail fascinated him.
The smoke of distant factory, the peasants gathering grapes,
the winding rivers that shone in the afternoon sun.
Mon Dieu, I thought my master was a quiet man who lived only by his clock. Instead, he drags me across all of France within a day.
The train is on time.
When they reached Marseille, the air was filled with the smell of salt and tar. Ships crowded the port, their masts rising like a forest of poles against the evening sky. The Mediterranean lay before them, blue and endless. For Passepartout, it was a first glimpse of a world beyond Europe.
Within hours, they boarded the steamship Mongolia, which was bound for Egypt.
The Mongolia was a proud vessel, painted black with gleaming brass rails. Its tall smokestack belched clouds of coal smoke, and its engines beat with the rhythm of a giant heart. On deck, the salty wind whipped through the rigging, and gulls followed in their wake. Passengers came from many nations: English merchants, French officers, Indian officials, and travelers
Of every description. The deck echoed with different languages: English, French, Italian, Arabic, and more.
Passepartout at first struggled to keep his balance as the ship rocked gently. He leaned over the rail and groaned. If only the sea would stop moving. But soon, the fresh air revived him, and curiosity replaced discomfort.
He wandered among the passengers, asking questions, marveling at their costumes, and laughing at the strange mixture of accents.
At night, he stood on deck, gazing at the stars, brighter than he had ever seen in London. Mr. Fogg, by contrast, lived exactly as if he were still in Savile Row. He rose at 8, took breakfast at 9,
Walked for half an hour, then joined a game of whist with 3 gentlemen.
He read his guidebook at fixed hours and checked his watch regularly. He did not waste a moment on idle talk or sightseeing. My master travels the world, Passepartout thought, but he behaves as if he never left his armchair. Still, the servant admired his master, a man who never hurried, never faltered, and never seemed surprised by the world.
Among the passengers was Detective Fix,
an officer of Scotland Yard.
He had secretly followed Fogg from Calais, convinced that the mysterious gentleman was the thief who had robbed the Bank of England.
Fix kept a close watch, walking the deck at all hours, pretending to admire the sea while keeping Fogg in view. He noted every detail: the calm way Fogg handled his cards at whist, the exact change he gave the steward,
The precise moments when he walked on deck.
At Brindisi in Italy, the ship stopped briefly to take on coal. While passengers stretched their legs, Fix hurried to send a telegram to London. Suspect has boarded Mongolia, bound for Suez. Please send arrest warrant to await him.
but the telegraph wires were slow. Messages crawled across Europe and the Mediterranean at the pace of old horses, not lightning. Fix feared that the warrant would not arrive in time. No Matin, he thought grimly. I shall not lose sight of him. One mistake, one slip, and I will have my proof.
Passepartout knew nothing of Fix's suspicions. For him, the voyage was a dream.
He had never seen such clear skies, such blue water, such brilliant sunsets.
He laughed like a boy when he saw dolphins leaping beside the ship.
He clapped his hands when flying fish scattered like silver arrows across the waves. He stared for hours at the coastlines, Italy's rocky shores, the distant islands rising like clouds from the sea.
One evening he said aloud, "Ah, France, I miss you. But what wonders await me?"
Who could have imagined I would travel farther in 1 week than in all my life before? The young Frenchman also began to feel respect for his master.
Fogg never spoke unkindly, never raised his voice, and always paid fairly. He seemed cold, but he was never cruel. Passepartout thought, perhaps this journey will not be so bad after all. The port of Suez shimmered under the hot Egyptian sun.
The steamship Mongolia had just docked after a week at sea, and its passengers were eager to step onto solid ground again.
Among them were Mr. Phileas Fogg and his servant, Passepartout, who followed his master with quick, lively steps.
For Passepartout, Egypt was a dream he had never imagined. Golden sands, narrow streets full of camels,
And minarets rising against the burning sky.
For Mr. Fogg, however, Egypt was only a point on a timetable, a line in his carefully measured plan.
Mr. Fogg checked his watch as soon as he disembarked.
We are on schedule. Passepartout wiped sweat from his forehead, astonished by the heat and the new sights.
Mon Dieu! This is another world! Look, Master! Those domes, those palm trees, those camels carrying water! But Mr. Fogg only nodded politely. The train for Cairo departs in 2 hours. We must not waste time.
Passepartout sighed. His master was a man of precision, not of wonder. Still, he followed faithfully.
Not far behind, Detective Fix of Scotland Yard kept a careful eye on them. He had followed Fogg since the Channel crossing, convinced that the English gentleman was the very man who had robbed the Bank of England.
Suspect Phileas Fogg has arrived in Suez, traveling to Cairo by train. Please send warrant for arrest immediately.
Might not arrive before Fogg moved further east. That frustrated him, but it also strengthened his resolve. He would stay close, waiting for the right moment to act. Meanwhile, he struck up a casual conversation with Passepartout, who was too trusting to doubt him.
Passepartout said proudly.
We have already crossed France, Italy, and the Mediterranean. Next is India, then Hong Kong, then America, and back to London.
Fix nodded but thought to himself, this challenge is just a cover. He is escaping justice.
His determination deepened. He must stop Fogg at all costs.
The train to Cairo began its long journey through the desert. It was a curious mixture of European technology and ancient landscape. The iron tracks cut across golden sands, while the wind carried whispers of ancient caravans that had once crossed the same routes.
Passepartout sat by the window, his eyes wide with delight. He pointed excitedly at every sight.
Look, monsieur, Bedouins on horseback. And there, a caravan of camels loaded with goods.
This land is full of wonders.
Mr. Fogg, on the other hand, sat upright in his seat, quietly reading his timetable and guidebook.
His expression never changed. At exact intervals, he glanced at his watch, confirming the train's punctuality.
After a while, Passepartout could not contain himself. Master, do you never feel amazed?
This desert, this sun, it is unlike anything in England.
Fogg looked up calmly. The world is wide, Passepartout, but amazement does not help us arrive on time. Still, Passepartout smiled. He admired his master's discipline, even if he did not understand it.
By evening, the train rolled into Cairo, the great city by the Nile. For Passepartout, it was a vision from a storybook. Narrow alleys filled with colorful markets, the sound of merchants calling out, and the fragrance of spices,
Coffee, and roasted meat. Donkeys and camels shared the streets with carriages.
Minarets pierced the sky, and the call to prayer echoed across the rooftops.
Magnificent. I never thought I would see such a place with my own eyes.
Mr. Fogg, however, moved with steady steps. He walked straight to the ticket office to confirm their passage on the next train to Suez, where a ship would take them toward Bombay, India. Time was everything. Detective Fix shadowed them through the crowded streets. He kept silent, but his thoughts burned. If only the warrant arrives in time.
That evening, Fogg allowed Passepartout a short walk through the bazaar. The servant marveled at the lamps that glowed in things that glowed in the dark, the craftsmen hammering brass, and the storytellers gathering children around them. To him,
Cairo was alive with magic.
But his master was already preparing for the next stage. He calculated the hours, the distance, and the connection.
We are still on schedule. If no delays occur, we will reach Bombay as planned.
Passepartout nodded, though in his heart he wished for more time to explore. Still,
he respected his master's mission. This was not a holiday. It was a race against time.
the next morning, as they prepared to leave Cairo, Fix approached Passepartout again. This time he spoke with false friendliness.
You are fortunate to serve such a master. But tell me, do you know why he is in such a hurry? Why he risks so much money? Why, of course. He is a man of honor. He has made a challenge, and he will win it. You will see.
Fix smiled but thought, the servant knows nothing. I must catch the master myself.
He then secretly wrote another telegram to London, repeating his request for the arrest warrant. He was determined to delay
Fogg in Egypt if possible, but Fogg's strict schedule left little chance.
The time soon came to leave Cairo and return toward the Red Sea, where their ship waited.
Fogg bought the tickets with his usual calmness, checked his watch, and guided Passepartout back to the stations.
As the train pulled away, Passepartout leaned out of the window, waving at the city that had enchanted him.
Goodbye, Cairo. Perhaps one day I shall return.
Fogg closed his guidebook and said quietly, "Onward to India." Behind them, Fix followed, his determination stronger than ever. The great adventure was only beginning.